Well, I always thought that curriculum was a step-by-step kind of program to follow so that you knew as a teacher exactly what to teach, how to teach it, and pretty much there was no room for creativity. But I definitely realize now that it's just a guideline and it's specifically about what kind of content to cover, but it can be bent and worked into one's individual teaching style and pedagogy. So
Yeah, I was quite similar. I believe the curriculum was a set of guidelines laid out. I thought it was like a binder so that anyone could just pick it up and teach the class. I mean, now of course I know the curriculum was a collection of important information. It does contain the biases and the personal beliefs of the people who put it together.
yeah, definitely. It is incredibly biased. I know we learned that a lot in class, like basically just old white men put it together, and like you can definitely see that, especially in a lot of the like science curriculum. I know when I had to analyze that, it was definitely like they threw in one or two things about First Nations culture. Oh, tie it in.
Yeah.
But that was it. Mostly just
a little tag on the
Euro-Western, white settler kind of science information. And I know that goes across the board for all the subjects.
Yeah, it's
in
really,
the SAS curriculum especially.
It's really important to look at the dates on stuff when you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Because like maybe there's something in there that is oppressive or othering that you don't know is in there, you don't catch, but it's...
Well, and then especially like look at the actual treaty like outcomes and indicators provided on the curriculum website.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
They're right there.
Yeah, they're right there, very hidden, which is another problem. They should have like big bold and like treaty indicators and outcomes.
Yeah.
So
like there's all those subjects in the curriculum laid out. Why is it anywhere else? Why is it?
Yeah, why isn't it just with them?
Yeah.
Why isn't treaty education just a subject header in there? But that's a whole other rant, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess overall, like a lot of my blog entries, I guess thinking about it, I definitely had to challenge that whole concept of that white settler, like I guess not embody it, but recognize that I do have a lot of white privileges, and like even though I am a female, I still have a lot of more privilege than other people, and so it's harder almost to see issues in the curriculum because of that, just because I grew up in a family with European descent, and so you don't notice that there is a problem with the curriculum until you really break it down and analyze it. And I know the blogs and all of those kind of analytical projects we did really help me realize that. So
yeah, it's important, like when you see a recognition of white power or male dominance, not to get defensive. I fit into that category, and it's been a very interesting journey both in this class and in the rest of the education program to look at it from a step back, see it as...
Yeah. Don't even look at like from a not male perspective, just from an androgynous, like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Just looking at things how they are, like clearly there is more white power and male dominance and all of these other things that really need to be recognized, and like specifically in the curriculum, it's definitely present. So
yeah,
this class really helped me understand that, though, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I guess with all that being said, like approaching the curriculum, you really want to approach it with caution. That's what I specifically would do, especially if I came into a classroom tomorrow and had to teach something. And I think it's important to understand that the information is good information. Like it's not like people just pulled it out of their butts or anything, But at the same time, it is definitely muddled with like biases, stereotypes, and they should really be brought to the surface when teaching and bring them to your students' attention, right? Say, this is the curriculum we have to work with. Let's work with it, but let's also pick it apart, right? Because if it's easy enough for us to do that after just having some discussions, I don't see why young students, older students, any students in between, I don't see why they couldn't understand it as well. And I guess for me as a teacher, I really want to facilitate learning in the classroom, and with these anti-bias and inclusive approaches to knowledge. So I think the first step is to just talk about the issues in the curriculum, because if you don't, you're just going to keep perpetuating the stereotypes brought up in the curriculum, and like, you know, it's not going to make it better, and it's not going to invoke change in the curriculum if you're just teaching by it and not pointing out what's right or wrong about it.
Right.
You know?
It's absolutely important to not only look at the information, but why the information is the way it is, because if you don't do that, especially with curriculum where you're telling students that this is the important information that they need to know, if you don't tell them, teach them to look at why it's important, then you won't have critical learners. And like, that's why I believe that my approach to curriculum is similar to the way I approach any document. It's with an air of critical skepticism.
Yeah. Don't trust it. Like, just because it's written and like, oh, government documents and stuff, like. Yeah.
I mean, you have to look at it from a place of discovering its value, picking it apart to find parts that are relevant, and also looking at what's maybe not so great about it. So that, I think that would make my role in the classroom, again, like you said, a facilitator role, but also like an interpreter, you know, kind of showing more than the face value of what you're teaching. Like, because it's...
dig deeper. You can always go deeper, and then that's how you'd be able to put your own teaching pedagogy in place with the curriculum, right? Like, 'cause that's the whole point of it, is you can bend it and shape it to how you want to teach, right? So dig deeper. Like,
that's why we take this class. It's not just, this is how you talk to a room full of 9-year-olds.
It's how are you going to teach this in a way that expresses how you believe things are, and without bias, but still explaining that you do have a perspective. And the whole idea, I guess, of anti-bias education is to like explain multiple perspectives. You can still show your own though, right? Like, it's impossible. It's important, and it's impossible to avoid having your own bias, and that's why it's important, especially because we are biased about the curriculum being like, you know, having all these stereotypes and like white biases, right? Like white privilege bias. So
yeah, it's important to look at the what and the why, because thinking critically is what you need in today's society, especially with all the fake news and alternative facts and all that stuff that goes around. Being able to look at information and assess it for its worth is incredibly valuable.
Definitely.
So cognitive dissonance is very important, obviously. I've mentioned it a lot in conversations with other people, that, you know, being wrong is awesome in a kind of way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, and as a teacher, you should be humble and be willing to always learn.
Oh, absolutely. Because like, realizing you're wrong, it's not like once you've learned you're wrong, it means that you were right before and it's not true anymore. Yeah, you were always wrong. And now you know it.
And now you're able to change that though, and work on the fact that like, no, I can understand things, and like everything's okay. And then also, I guess, like, discomfort with that, like, it's so great to have things be disturbed and to disrupt your idea of what knowledge you have, because then you're willing to actually work on, like, hopefully you're willing to work on creating more knowledge and like correct knowledge, I guess, like being more informed about what's actually the case.
Yeah,
and
being
like,
wrong is an opportunity to be right, you know.
Well, and then to understand that there might be different ways you can be right and wrong about things too, right? Like, you're not just going to be, like, it's the whole like multiple histories and multiple ways of knowing, right? Like, maybe, like, it's not to say that, oh, the way that I do math is wrong or right, even though it's not based on the way the teacher taught it to me, and to be able to accept, like, oh, there are other ways to understand things.
Yeah, that kind of ties into when you're moving away from the instructional role to the facilitator role as a teacher, you know.
Exactly.
Just because it's not the knowledge you would use doesn't mean it's invalid. I mean, that's why we have totally different professions. You wouldn't hire an engineer to do heart surgery.
No. God, no. Would not be a good idea.
Sorry to any engineers.
But I guess furthering this whole like cognitive dissonance and like feeling uncomfortable, there were definitely a lot of moments in this course where I felt uncomfortable. And
this whole program really.
Yeah, this whole program, any classes that I've been taking, I feel like I have been, like, my way of understanding things or what I thought previously has been disrupted by some sort of class that I've taken where they said like, oh yeah, this way you've been looking at it, nope. It's not right. And
just pull the rug out from underneath.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, yeah, rip the Band-Aid though.
Yeah.
Let me understand and figure it out.
I think a big example of that was when, for me and probably for you too, was when you learn to realize that treaty education and Indigenous education,
two separate things.
Totally separate things.
Yeah, which honestly, I enjoyed our project where we had to create a lesson or like a little mini unit kind of thing on Indigenous or treaty education. But I know I found, and I feel like you might have too, but you can speak for yourself, but I found like I couldn't teach treaty education because the most that I'd ever learned was like, oh yeah, the $5 thing and the handshakes and just the specific agreements and the whole like until like treaties will last for as long as the grass grows and the sun shines and the rivers flow. Like, I know I said that in the wrong order, but that whole line, like, that's all I really know.
Well, I hadn't been exposed to it at all. Like, when we moved here
from Quebec,
it's like we're on Treaty 4 territory. I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah,
and I've had that been, like, I've had people say that to me. I've even said it in presentations, like, I'm on Treaty 4 land. I know there's a Cree and Ojibwe, I believe, right? Yeah, and, like, a few other things being spoken here from First Nations cultures. But I honestly, like, after even taking Indigenous Studies 100, maybe a little bit talked about treaties, but not actually.
Ours didn't talk about it at all.
Well, and it wasn't even, it was like the Indian Act, and it wasn't even necessarily like specific treaties. No treaties were outlined, all of that stuff. So for me to be put in a position where I had to make a lesson based on potentially treaty education, I didn't feel qualified at all. And I didn't feel like I had the opportunity to learn about them because I was never really specifically taught. I was taught about Indigenous culture, definitely lots throughout my whole elementary and high school career. Like, I know lots about residential schooling. I know lots about reserves and issues and, you know, different kinds of things that happen there. I know lots of that, but treaties, right over my head.
Yeah, it's interesting that Indigenous education is part of the mandated classes we have to take, but not like a treaty education course. I mean, there's enough room in the semesters for you to take an arts course. Like, I'm not sure exactly how learning to.
Sorry, there's a cat outside. I thought it was Oscar, but
it's not. Okay.
Okay, sorry. Go on.
It's an interesting third member of our group. Yeah, there was room in the curriculum to suggest that I should take like a theater class, but nothing to say that I should take any kind of study into the treaty education. Yeah,
or even like, it was very, very much proposed that you should take Cree or whatever to like expose yourself to Indigenous culture.
But it's not required.
And then also, like, I almost feel like that's kind of tokenism.
Oh, absolutely.
And with the unit we had to make, the fact that it was like, yeah, you have to make this at least once. Let's do one kind of Indigenous thing where at least you try lesson planning with Indigenous content. Like, that to me feels like, oh, let's have a mosaic day and let's throw all these cultures in one day. And then that's it. You don't have to talk about it anymore. Like, that's kind of how it felt. And I know that wasn't the intention, but it's really hard to not feel that way, especially when we went into it kind of not really knowing a lot about treaties. And I don't know, just the talk, you need to know treaties, but never having a class about it really messed up my whole understanding of what to do.
I think that has to do partially with the fact that we're in like a paradigm shift, you know, like they're learning about it now in elementary schools and high schools, but when we went through it, it wasn't. If it was very limited. And so that kind of shift is gonna hopefully future education students won't feel that way, but as it sits right now.
It's unfortunate that we're like in the middle. We're getting told, teach treaty education, but then because of our previous education, we haven't had it. But then, I don't know, I feel like, yeah, there should be a treaty ed class.
Yeah.
A whole semester, just talk about the treaties, talk about the purpose of them, the importance of them, and like literally talk about the details in them.
Well, and there's more than enough details to make a full course.
Exactly, yeah. But I guess overall, like to sum it up, that was the most uncomfortable I had felt, was when I had to create a lesson based on information I wasn't really familiar with, and so we had to go with the classic, indigenous culture, let's talk about the medicine wheel, but like I didn't want to, but that was the only way that I could relate it to the curriculum and do that kind of stuff. Like it almost was impossible to figure out, especially for whatever grade we had. It was like grade 3.
Yeah, the education feels.
Or kindergarten or something.
Yeah, whenever there's an addition of this kind of subject matter, it feels like to cancel out somebody's complaint.
Mm-hmm.
It never feels like
it's like, okay, shut up.
Yeah,
like,
they
put it in there.
They didn't build the program up around this. They added it on to deal with it, and that's difficult to
work with
and to understand.
And to like have to teach in the
Yeah.
future, like it's not gonna really help.
Yeah.
There needs to be like just completely rewritten curriculum. Really, like it just needs to get fixed completely, like rewritten from the ground up, with people who have a really good understanding of multiple ways of knowing.
Use the document as
education.
it is now as like a research document.
Yeah, and to be like, this is what we need to base things off of, but we can go deeper. You can always go deeper.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Okay. I think is that all we want to talk about?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.